for you guys to have me. And my intention for our session, for our time together today is that I hope we all go away from here knowing a little bit more about our own selves and our own, connection with our own leadership. Mutually we learn from each other, and that is my intention for our session today.
Okay, so welcome, Bhavna. I would like to hear from a couple of you, so far, how are you feeling, or do you have anything specific, in brief to share, or you have some expectations from the session?
Yeah, that would be helpful. So you want them to put it in the chat, Shobita?
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, so politics is a very broad word, and what I want everyone to keep in mind is, remember that one situation that you feel that you are going through or have gone through. Keep that situation in mind. I would like to know, how to deal with office politics when you can't play it yourself. Vanita is saying that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, politically astute. That's what Shweta says.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Absolutely, you're right, Shweta. It is an opportunity area. Anyone else? What would be valuable for you to take away from this session? If you can share, then we can be more targeted around that. Madhuri, that's exactly the point of view where Madhuri wants to know if she could get some help in handling herself around these political scenarios and how to stay away from office gossip and focus on your work. Completely relevant. I've been there myself. So I know how difficult it can be sometimes, even if you don't want to indulge into that gossip. Okay.
Okay, how to talk diplomatically when you're very straightforward in your talk. That's what Preeti wants to know.
Yeah, that is also very true, Shweta. How do you know that there are these underlying, power dynamics that is shaping up, and how do you learn to read that? How do you position yourself amongst others who are loud and better at counting their achievements? Okay. Okay, I think, yeah. Do you think, Shobita, that is enough?
Yeah, I guess we are good there. I guess, yeah, someone has one more this thing. I don't want to do spreadsheet tasks and other secretary work being a lead. I was told by everyone to do whatever jobs that I'm given, but I find it difficult. And Amulya says, how can we avoid politics affecting us, and how can we better position ourselves better with these without these tactics? Okay, so I hope all of you will be able to find at least some answers from Bhavna and her experiences so far. So before we start off, there is a quick poll that Bhavna wants all of you to take. So I'll just launch the poll. Yeah, I hope everyone can view that, and probably you can just quickly answer these two questions in the poll. Is everybody done?
Sorry to ask you. So this Preeti here. So what is the experience level you're talking of when you talk between mid-career and senior level?
It's just a broad demographic I think we're looking for. So you can put in either, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, I guess I hope we have a good number now. I'll just end the polling. So, Bhavna, we have a good mix. We have, I guess, almost in all the categories we have good amount. I guess the early career or the 20 to 25, the student group is kind of pretty less than 10%. In all the other, we have like around 30% people kind of.
Okay, all right. Fantastic. So I think I should be able to sort of, address and at least get your mindset into, getting some clarity on all of these questions. So over to you, Shobita.
Okay. Yeah, sure, Bhavna. So probably I will just start with a very, very kind of a difficult question. So office politics as such is like, it's very, very difficult for everyone. But it just comes very naturally to some people. They just handle it much better than the others. And some people just kind of, they are not so good at it, or they just don't identify that, this is how it is to be done. So, what do you think is the main difference here, or what is it that makes some people manage it or handle it much better?
Yeah, you're right. The perception often is that some people have, they just know how to do it, especially, as you go in the more senior level, uh, politically astute, as someone mentioned, if that is naturally something that they have become based either on their experiences or their learnings, or they're naturally blessed with it, right? The important thing to know is that there are skills that are required to become that person, and these are leadership skills. And while, what is politics after all? Let's put that out there. Okay, after all, politics is nothing but the power dynamics of how things get done, how ideas are adopted or not, right? And so it is nothing at the below the power dynamics. All that exists are actually, relationships, the ability to influence, the ability to be able to communicate what you want, and the ability to understand what other people want out of you. Did I lose you, Shobita?
Yeah, I'm very much here.
Yeah. So it all comes down to that. At the end of the day, it is managing those relationships, actively building those relationships, knowing which relationships are important, which are not, and recognizing that power dynamics. Now, the reason it becomes hard is sometimes because a lot of it happens below the surface. A lot of these things happen quietly and subtly, as it's called soft skills. I like to call it as leadership skills. So these are the things that happen to a large extent. So the more observant you become, the more you're able to step out of your own head, the better you become at handling politics.
Okay. So, Bhavna, just an add-on question. Do you think, having more conversations with the, probably the higher level, your boss and higher ups, so that will also kind of, help you better here, so that, you are aware of whatever is, like, let's say in case of an opportunity that's coming up or anything if of that sort?
So I will not, the answer to this question is not yes or no. If you don't have clarity, if you have a lot of bitterness,
Okay.
then if you go and talk to the senior leadership, your conversation will not go well.
Yeah.
But if you are clear about how you can bring about positive change, you're clear about what your strengths are, where you need more support, but where you are passionate and what you want to achieve.
Okay.
And from that perspective, if you communicate clearly, yes, in that case, maybe yes. So you see what I mean? It's
Yeah.
never a black and white situation. It's always a gray. And from that gray, you can make it black or white depending on how you approach it, how you perceive it, the mindset and attitude that you bring to that particular problem.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I get your point, Bhavna. I guess, yeah, it makes much more, sense, to have that clarity within ourselves before we, go ahead and, take some decisions, or, decide on, plan on what our actions can be, basically.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So moving on. So, like, why do you think, like, there are like some people who they know how to jump through the hoops much better than the others? Okay, they get better opportunities or better promotions, or they go, grow in the ladder quite in a faster manner than compared to others. So what might be the differences there?
Mm. So, you are absolutely right. On the surface, it looks like, oh, some people are just lucky, or they suck up. They attend every happy hour and suck up to the bosses. But I need to go home and I have to take care of my family, or I have other things to do. So our brain is always trying to calculate and give a reason to why that person is where they are at. Right? There are many factors that contribute to something like this. So I work with leaders from across the globe, different industries, right? From IT, fintech, CXO level, CEO level, even senior manager, director level, right? And I clearly see the difference at each level in terms of the leadership ability or the way they think. And that those kind of skills are not easy. So if you're a manager, it is difficult for you to know all of the things that are expected of a director. But the director will know, then there are two managers, that this person it's not just about doing the task. And with women, I've noticed very often we are very, and I've gone through a tremendous journey myself, of really finding my own leadership and connecting with it to a place where I, founded a business and I'm running the business and then it's come into a book and all of that. So I've been through those really dark, difficult times where it's very easy to put the blame or the luck factor, or because of this that person is there. It's very easy to shift that ownership on something else or somebody else. Oh, like somebody's written, right? I don't want to play the game, and so how do I win without playing the game or without getting into politics? So it's the big this is what in the book in my book there's a chapter in which I explain something called a drama triangle of the roles we play in our own head. Okay, so the importance of acting is what that chapter is, and this is the victim mindset. So the moment we say that, oh, that person did well because of this, we stop working on ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have given them all the power and that they have done well, and that's the reason, because they're sucking up and I don't like to suck up. So, and then we feel okay about it. But the fact is then we are stagnant. We are not improving, right? What would be an alternative way to look at that situation? Oh, that person goes and sucks up to people. They are successful getting more opportunities. I don't want to do that, but I want to succeed too. I'm really good at this. This is what I want. This is how I can do better. How do I now make it known that I would also like these opportunities? Just to give you an example. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I got
that's the difference, where you're not forcing yourself to change and be somebody else. But at the same time, you're not just staying in your comfort zone. You're also willing to start being curious about, hey, what is it that people think that why did I not get that promotion? What area might I need to improve? I also want it, but sometimes we want to be righteous. We want to think that, I don't do this or I don't do that. But if you think of politics as a bad thing and give those labels, then you will please be okay with maybe just being where you are at.
Yeah. So probably, as I get it, Bhavna, you mean to say like probably there might be some alternative approaches. The same approach may not work for everybody, but there might be some approaches, some tailored approaches for us that would work rather than another person who has, got it all so lucky or so easily kind of. So, I mean, probably it's all in identifying what are those approaches and how we can make a best use of them, probably.
Right, exactly. Like somebody said something about favoritism. You're politically astute and it's interpreted as favoritism. Now, I want to bring in a topic here that I think that I've talked about in the book, and there's a lot of interest around that, which is good politics and bad politics. Okay, if you don't, some of you are in the senior positions, are managers, right? Are mid-management. You have a team. As a manager, you're responsible for the team. You're responsible for your stakeholders, who are your seniors. You have to manage your peers. You have to manage yourself. If you don't learn, if you say, I don't want to play politics, I don't want to get involved, keep me away from it, you're basically trying to say that I don't want to understand the dynamics. I don't want to understand how things are done. Once things get very messy or dirty, then it's your choice how much you want to engage. But politics is not only about that. That's those very few extreme situations when things go wrong. And if you become politically smart, you can even make sure that it never happens. So it's in good politics, bad politics. What is good? What can I mean, can someone try to give me an example of good politics? I want to first hear from the audience. If you can type in an example that might come to your mind of good politics.
Okay, at least from my point, I guess, Bhavna, it would be something like, at least, so if I'm aware of something, let's say I'm aware of some opportunity, of some probable opportunity coming up. So if I knew it is gonna come, or if I have an idea about that, so let's say I'm going and talking to my boss or the needed people, whoever is involved in that, so they're like, okay, this is something I'm interested in. So if there is something coming up in that particular field or area, please include me, or I would love to work on that. So I'm just going and asking, this is something really fair and square is what I feel. There's nothing bad. I'm not doing anything bad or anything for anybody. I'm just talking for myself. So, I mean, that as per me would be like, good politics.
Yeah. So instead of just waiting around for your talent to be noticed, and what will happen if you just keep waiting around and if you don't take that initiative and go have those meetings to communicate, because you have heard from the grapevine that this opportunity is coming, you think you're a good fit. If you want it, why not go talk about it, right? Some people can perceive it as politics, and then later on, those same people who are sitting there waiting to be noticed will call you political, right? Because you got that position and they didn't.
Yes.
But this is not bad politics, isn't it? You took the initiative, you deserve to get it. You went and talked about it, you had the clarity, you spoke about it, right? I will give you, so not always collaboration and talking positive about opponents is not always good politics. I will give you an example, which I have used in the book as well. I had a senior manager at Morgan Stanley, okay? He had a team of, small team of 3-4 people. One of his team members was excellent in his work. He had great work ethic. He was reliable. He was very good at his work, but his communication skills were not that great. His presentation skills were not that great. And what happened was, when the upper management was making a decision to promote him, they didn't really promote him. And so this particular manager, who relied heavily on this team member, was very upset because he really thought this person was a good employee and very valuable. What did he start doing? He was very worried about losing him, because he knew if this person didn't get promoted again, he would leave the company, and that would be a big loss to him. Maybe the senior management didn't care, but he cared because it would have been a loss to him. So what he started doing was, he started grooming this person. He did not highlight his negatives to the team, to his seniors. If there was an opportunity to present, this guy would not very often present to the senior people, so they were not exposed to his faults. He kept him a little bit in the limelight when it was written work, but away from the limelight when it was more about, these kind of things. And meanwhile, he was grooming him, right? And so what is this? He played politics, didn't he?
Yeah. Yes.
He played politics, but in the end, it was good for everybody. It was good for the company. It was good for the senior management. It was because he understood that this person's perception was pulling him down. And what were some of those key areas of his perception that were pulling him down? He sort of kept that under the rug, so to speak. Right? So that is also politics, but it was good politics. He played politics. You have to be, if you're intelligent and smart and curious and ambitious and you want to get ahead, you have got to learn how things happen, how people undermine. Like, I do a lot of workshops for women leaders as well, right? One of the things which people have also, women have this, and we are trying to shift that patriarchal mindset overall in society. It's not going to be easy, but even we ourselves need to first shift our mindset, right? We have to claim our power. We cannot, like somebody said, oh, people will call you bossy. I was giving a talk at one of these organizations. They said, people will call you bossy. So what, right? So the important thing is to learn to be assertive without being aggressive.
Yes.
It's about being clear and conveying your point with a lot of power without coming on as arrogant and strong. And it's navigating that becomes the skill that you learn. So I work with a lot of people on helping them develop these skills, how to become more strategic, how do you build that executive presence, how do you claim your power, and an inert feminine power, not a power of, like a mass, not like a man, but powerful, but as a woman, which is very important to understand.
Yeah, I guess 2 points I would say, like, I got a takeaway from you, Bhavana, with this is like, yeah, claiming power, like, is very important. I don't think, like, many a times, like, I guess women think that, okay, somebody will come and probably, put us on the throne, keep us, and like, give us all, okay, now you can do it. So that doesn't happen in corporate. So we have to kind of claim our power. And the other thing, as you know, rightly pointed out, we need not be like men. We have our own strengths, and in our own ways, we are powerful. So we can show that level of power. So yeah,
You need to connect with that power. See, even I've gone through the journey where I had to connect with that power. I did not know I had that kind of power until I actually connected with it. And how do you connect? How do you claim your power? And Shobita, you'll be surprised with, so there's a chapter in the book on influencing skills, which was the most difficult chapter for me to write because I had to actually go through certain experiences myself before I could actually be original. There's a lot of conversation around influencing, but I didn't want to be superficial. I wanted to really write from the heart, and I wanted to write something truly like original. And I was so blocked, but I had to go through my own journey, and that's where I talk about influencing comes from this power, and to kind of come in touch with this power, you have to claim it. And what you also need to learn is how you give away the power. So you'll be surprised. So what are the examples of how you give away your power? When you want to say no, but you say yes, you are diminishing your power. When you're doing things because you feel that you have to do them, but you really don't want to do them, you're giving away your power. When you're not speaking up, but you really want to, but you're fearful of what others will think or how you will be perceived, you're not claiming your power.
okay.
So it's these small things, and what comes in the way is always your fears, your own beliefs that, oh, politics is a bad thing. I'm not going to play politics. I'm a good girl.
Yeah, so the good girl image doesn't help always. We have to work for ourselves. I mean, to come out of that image. Yeah, we can still be a good girl and have some,
Yeah, so that's the way I want everyone to think, in a win-win way. We usually think I don't play politics, so I'm a good girl. But you can say, hey, I'm going to learn how to play politics, and yet I'm a good girl, and I'm going to find a way to do that. It's always about that third option, which we kind of never explore. So it's really learning, and for that you need to be curious about yourself. You need to be willing to challenge your way of thinking. You don't need to always own that as an ultimate truth, which is what most of us have. And this problem happens to both men and women. I will agree, women have this. This is not to enforce gender stereotypes, but women do have this problem of perception in the workplace where they are generally expected to be nice. So if they are calling the shots, then if they are effective, then sometimes they feel that they have to compromise their niceness for their effectiveness, because also society doesn't help much there. But I think a lot is changing. I think if we step up and if we decide to kind of explore the way to do that, you don't have to be rude and loud to get what you want, right? There are people who are really quiet but very effective in getting what they want. So you have to kind of be observant of those role models and try to learn from them that how do they do this? What is it that they do when they want to give negative feedback? Also, they're so calm. But when I have to say something negative, I'm a bundle of emotions and I feel so horrible and I don't want to deal with that and all of that, right? So you have to start learning how to do that, and you can learn. That's a big part of what I help people learn. How do you do that?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Bhavna. So I'll go on to my next question, which is like a very, a very, I would say, very relevant one. So women are always kind of, we are kind of equated to the thing called empathy, and empathy right now is like it's one of the most important factors that is being considered in leadership also. So when it comes to empathy, so is it like a right or wrong way of delaying office politics by using empathy, or how do we, use it the wise way probably?
So I think empathy is not very well understood by like the general, by most people. Very often, some people think of empathy as sympathy. When you ask them, many will say yes to put yourself in the other's shoes. What empathy truly means is, and there's a layer before empathy that you need to learn before you can even think of being consciously empathetic. Can anyone tell me what that might be? Another word, a word that you need to know before you can actually employ empathy in your dealings. Anybody?
I don't see much responses in the chat. Emotionally intelligent. Yeah, right.
Intelligent. Okay, Srividya, you are there. Self-awareness. Excellent. So empathy starts with EM, which is the beginning of emotions. So empathy is nothing but being able to sense the emotion in another person, which is Srividya is right. It's emotional intelligence. So when you start sensing how a person is feeling, how their body is reacting to that feeling, how their expressions are changing, the ability to being able to notice other people's emotions is empathy. That truly is empathy. And to be able to do that, you have to first notice your own emotions. So don't try to give to others what you don't have. And that's where I think what Madhuri is saying, self-awareness comes into the picture. So thank you, ladies. You really helped me encapsulate this very well. But you have to start first becoming aware of your own emotions. And very often we lie to ourselves. We feel bad about being passed over for that promotion or not being given that interesting project. And somebody said being stuck with just doing spreadsheets, even though you're more intelligent and capable. So your IQ is not going to help you there as much, but it is your EQ which will help you there. So you have to first own up to the fact that you're not feeling happy about this. You cannot say that, oh, I'm such an accommodating. And that's the problem, right? With women, culturally, we've been conditioned that you are good, you are worthy, if you are a good mother, if you are a good wife, if you are accommodating, right? These are our natural skills. We are naturally good at that, right? Anything that is overused, any strength that is overused is going to become a weakness or a liability to the whole world at large, right? The whole world will benefit if women become more assertive and bring that feminine energy more into their work, into their communities, and into everybody's lives. The whole idea behind leadership, most of the skills, so there are two aspects. I would like to divide it as masculine energy and feminine energy, not about male and female. But to be a successful leader, like there's Mother Teresa, there is Margaret Thatcher, there's Gandhi, and there are so many different well-known, world-renowned leaders who are men and women. But leadership qualities, if we were to look at them, there are masculine qualities and there are feminine qualities. Masculine is always about the left brain of taking action, decisions, analysis, logic. And the feminine is more about the collaboration, the empathy, the creativity, the innovation, the risk taking. A lot of that comes from feminine energies. So each person, man or woman, has a combination of these qualities. Of course, the certain qualities are more predominant in certain, so women are naturally nurturing and empathetic. And so we have the capability of using this, but we need to combine those qualities of, that ambition. And once you combine these two together, then you are a true leader, whether you're a man or a woman. Okay. Make sense?
Yeah.
So if I were to say empathy, yes, absolutely. Not just empathy, but empathy is a great way to start. But even more than others, you start with yourself first. First, be clear and empathetic towards yourself and say, hey, do I really want to do this? Or do I want to do it because my family will think that I'm doing so well? That whole path between the technical and the managerial track for growth. Now at least we have technical paths for growth, right? Earlier we didn't even have those, but now people can choose to be technical all the way till architect principal level in technology companies at least. So It's about what others think you should do and you complying to that versus no, I want to quit my job and I just don't feel like working for some time and I want to be with my children because I want to do it. Or no, I want to continue working and my children will be fine. That's okay. I'm okay to live with that, irrespective of what anyone else thinks. But what is your true, what do you truly want? It's really identifying with that and being empathetic with yourself. And once that's the clarity I was talking about, once you get more and more, and that's a forever journey which will keep unfolding and unfolding. It doesn't really stop, but it's not a one-time thing. That self-awareness you need to constantly kind of inculcate and become aware of more and more of who you are, and not who you have been conditioned to become.
Yeah, so basically it's like, more of like being empathetic to self, and once we are aware of what we need, and I guess when we help ourselves, we can help others also better, probably.
Exactly. And it doesn't come like a lot of senior leaders that I've worked with, right? Very often everybody wants to be there for their team. Everyone wants to do well for the organization. But the self-sacrificing is not going to work anymore. If your heart is not in the place, no matter, you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yes.
You have to be full of happiness and joy and satisfaction to be able to then distribute it to the others. So that self-martyred, that particular aspect will not serve you for too long. For some time, yes, but not if you are somebody who wants to do like, really big things or really want to accelerate your growth in your career and not by undermining others, but taking others along with what you want to do. That's true leadership.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Bhavna. So, I mean, why don't you tell us more about your book, Bhavna, the Checkmate Office Politics, which is like, what were the reasons why you started about writing this book, or what is it that we can look at, or we can learn more from that book? Do you want to share?
Yeah, Sridhar, I will answer your question soon. But so when I work, like I told you, I work with the people, leaders on their different challenges, right? There will be, some will say, I want to be able to influence my team better. Some will themselves say, I want to be more inclusive. How do I speak more to the point? I feel that I end up wasting a lot of time because I have to listen to my senior person complain about negative things. Somebody talked about gossip. So there are all these different, and a lot of the times, like Shiva was saying, I don't want to be pulled into politics. I'd rather not deal with the things. Why can't people be more like straightforward about situations? So I was hearing a lot of that, and I mean, I write a lot about leadership, and you can find many articles around, simple topics like self-awareness and how to get started in meditation, or how to be more assertive. What is a vision? How do you set a vision? Those kind of articles that I write around around leadership. And so when the publishers approached me to write a book, and I had written an article on office politics, which I forgot because my clients were talking about it. So I noticed that they were saying things like, these are all really intelligent, brilliant, accomplished individuals, okay? And when I worked with them on their challenges, I realized that the only thing setting them back was their collective belief in office politics. Like I told you, I don't want to go there. I cannot get to this position because it requires me to be political. And they were holding themselves back from greatness because of this limited perception. And in their minds, it was a dirty word. And they thought that it's better I don't handle it, right? But the fact of the matter is that it's a reality. It exists, right? And in the book, in the initial chapters, I do explain why it exists. It's nothing but human needs. Human need of getting ahead, human need of being considered worthy, right? So while for you something might be a straightforward matter, but to that person, they want something so bad that they are willing to go at all lengths to get it. Isn't that a good quality too? That you are so determined that you want to go and pursue whatever you want. Now, yes, there are casualties along the way, and that is not a nice thing if you are a casualty. And you want to avoid the casualties as much as possible. But in leadership, as you go higher up in senior leaders, you must have heard, right? So many sometimes they have to do, especially now in COVID times, They have to do pay cuts. They have to let go so many people. They have to make such tough decisions. Do you think it's easy? But no, it's necessary, right? They say, right, if you want to be liked by everyone, go and buy ice cream for everyone. But if you want to be a leader, then it's not about good or bad. It's what is in line with the greater goal, with the greater vision. So while something may be straightforward to you and you think you know your reasons for something to be done, but you don't know the bigger picture. That could be one reason. And the second thing is that it all depends on if you have to come in touch with that fire. That's the power and that fire that I'm talking about. But it's not necessary for it to be always bad. So if you come from that place and with that right intention, then it's good politics. Otherwise, it can very quickly go to being bad politics. So how do you address it if you don't want to be pulled into politics unnecessarily? You change your mindset and you say, what is the reason that you don't want to be pulled into politics? What is the reason? Because you don't want conflict. You feel uncomfortable in speaking up. You don't want to hurt people. You don't want to feel bad, right? That's where our emotions come into the picture. But if you say, okay, let's see what will happen if I decide to start I am anyway you are going to get pulled in it. It's better if you're prepared rather than be pulled in unnecessarily. So if you keep saying, no, I don't want to be pulled in, I don't want to be pulled in, you are actually not armed. But if you understand, okay, what is going on? Who are the key? So there's a quiz, by the way, in the book, right in the beginning, which talks about how politically savvy you are. So I know somebody used the word politically astute, but I chose the word politically savvy. And it talks about it, you can gauge how politically savvy you are. And that is actually a strategic quiz, as in you're forced to not just be caught up in, even if you're in a team and not at like the organizational level, but it forces you to look at things from a strategic perspective. Who are the key decision makers? Okay. You know who the key decision makers are in your organization, right? Who are the more favored people and why? So those kind of things you need to start paying attention to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I guess there's one more question from Madhuri.
Yeah, so Madhuri, so it's up to you. I have seen all kinds of situations where people do confront dirty politics and be successful. I've seen people who cannot and have been forced to quit. Okay, so it's never in the outcome and it's never black and white. It's always very situation dependent. So there was a very senior manager from a bank, senior general manager. Okay, so he knew that, like you mentioned, there was a position coming up 6 months ahead of time. He started talking to people, showcasing his strengths, in a very strategic manner. He started traveling to meet the folks in the different country, doing all of that, right? And then when he became the senior manager, he said, I'm not doing anything wrong. I want this position and I'm making my abilities shown to people, right? He was ambitious, but the people around him got extremely upset with him. They thought he's being very political and it's really bad. And they started a campaign against him. So he felt they were playing politics. They felt he was playing politics, right? Now, it could have been avoided. It could have been avoided if he knew that he was trying to do this. He could have worked on building his relationships, not only upwards, but even sideways, where people knew that he's not really a bad person, connect with them, really help them with little few favors here and there, or go out of his way to network or connect with them, whatever the ways he would do it. Mm-hmm. So it all depends on how it's done, and it is a skill. You slowly do learn, but the foundation, what I want everyone to know, it comes from taking that reflective time for yourself, thinking about things, really trying to understand, who are you? Where do you want to go? What are your own values? What are your beliefs? What are some of the beliefs that are not serving you? What are some of your fears? Your fear of failing makes you a great, excellent problem solver where you never want to fail. But do you know that that's making you not a very good innovator? Mm-hmm. So those kind of things come up in my sessions with people when I'm working with a lot of women, especially. Mm-hmm. A lot of times their relationships at home are a big factor in how they are showing up at work.
Yeah.
Either too aggressive or they become too, quiet, depending on how they manage the dynamics between home. So all those factors, it's a holistic approach always.
Mhm. So there's one more question. I guess Carol, she said, put it to me privately, Bhavna. So her question is how to prove our capability where men are given more power than women being in the same position.
Sorry, when men are in the same position.
Yeah, so but they are given more power with, I mean, when compared to their women colleagues, basically.
Yeah. So if they have if management has a perception that you can be taken for granted, then you will be taken for granted. Okay. So it's about how do you ensure you become so valuable. So it's both. You become so valuable with your work, and you build that. So when I say work, it's not just about the tasks that you do, but it's about sensing the needs of your team, um, being able to groom your team members. I'm talking about mid-management level here, because then you have maybe 2 or 3 or larger number of people. I'm not talking about individual contributors so much, the example that I'm giving you, but even it applies to individual contributors as well. If you are easy to work with and also good at your work, that may not always work, because sometimes you also need to give back. So if there's another department which is not sharing information with you, and that information is critical for you to be able to move forward, you also need to have the ability to kind of show them the consequences and make sure that they don't take you for granted. So I had a very senior person recently, and he would put in hours. He was a head of finance, and the HR team would give him data which was very, very poor data. It was not cleaned up. It was not, it wasn't correct data. So he would spend a whole bunch of time on his own trying to fix their problem and then getting things done. And he just felt that he was such a nice guy that he's doing it. But think of that negative impact of doing this, right? Because he was not getting any time for himself. He was getting irritable. His work-life balance was a spoiled. In fact, in his 360 feedback report, which I do a lot of 360s, everyone suggested that he needed more work-life balance. Imagine other people telling you that you need to have more work-life balance.
Okay. Bhavna, I may put it from what I got, it's like, upwards, downwards, and even to some extent sideways, like with our peers. I mean, it's better to have some level of coordination, and so that, we have that that balance kind of, or, we have an understanding about them, the other people, our peers and colleagues as well, and they have an understanding about ourselves, so that, things do not get very dirty, probably.
Right, and that can be viewed as politics by others, right? People will say, like, oh, this person is so connected. They go and talk to everybody. They go and sit and have meetings. And, Shobita, the important thing is not about time. That is one excuse that I feel we all like to give to ourselves. But always know, the moment you say to yourself, I have no time, that is only an excuse. You can be very effective with another person in a 10-minute meeting. You can do a quick 15-minute chat and you can be very effective with that person, with another person. So it's never about the time. It's about how effective you become. And for that, again, you need that clarity of purpose. You need to be clear about what is it that you are trying to get out of it.
Yeah, true. I guess we have a couple of more follow-on questions in the chat, Bhavna. One, Srividya is asking, sometimes people also play politics to have their way, and it might be an attack on your core values which you stand by. So that's a conflict situation which may have a boomerang effect. How do we address this?
That's an excellent question, Srividya, because there is very often we are faced with conflicting values, when our own values conflict, and that creates issues like procrastination, stagnation, not being able to move forward. Because within ourselves, we are like, I myself, took a break. I was an engineer and I took a break to raise my children, though I was so ambitious. But when I was doing that, I was very happy. But when my children were a little bit older and I was starting this new business, I didn't even know that this field existed, and I was going to go all alone trying to figure out, there was no, because in society your roles are set. You are this mother for so long, so nobody expects, even your own family will say, hey, why are you bothering to do this? Why do you want to do it? But to me, it was so real. The biggest shift I had to bring was in my own self-identity. So whenever there is so you have to know that the external situations are just a mirror that make you aware of the conflicting values. And sometimes you have to choose which value you are going to give more weightage to right now, and for the purpose of the greater vision, which value will serve you better. So you have to be honest there, and you have to understand which. So a lot of times I have kind of clients in coaching calls when that comes up as a meaty, area for me to address as a coach. I will always try to find the commonality between the values. That is another way to kind of move forward with the situation. So sometimes, yes, there is a conflict in the values, but there are sometimes also the parallels in the values. And once you can connect with that alignment of the parallelism, then that helps you move forward. I don't know if that answers your question, Srividya.
I guess, I mean, you almost made it your response is that parallelism concept is something I guess people are not so much aware of, or, people usually in usual scenarios, we don't think about such a thing, that it would exist, or it can also happen that we can still, stand by the values and do something slightly different, slight detour kind of, and then still manage to make it kind of.
Yeah, and I'll give you another secret. When I do this exercise with a lot of my clients sometimes, where I'll ask them to hold so the value comes from the two, diverging things that they want, or the conflict, like she mentioned, right? And so I will always ask them, and then we go to the bottom of the values and more and more. And in the end, most of the time where they converge or where that parallel lies, and in the end, both of those ideas or conflicting issues are looking for very similar things, like we all want freedom, or we want peace, or we want love, or we want one of those very fundamental needs of a human being, like I said, freedom and love, which we all want that, right, at a core level. So that's where those core values often do merge. So it's about finding that merger and integrating those parts of yourself. So it's about coming together. So I do that, and then I get them to merge physically with their hands. And once they do that, then even emotionally the merger happens. And so those values then don't fight with each other; they sort of come together.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Bhavna. So Madhuri's question is also a very interesting one. She talks about one of her colleagues who underplays her own shortcomings and overplays her work, and she does a vice versa for her competitors or other colleagues who are competing with her. So she probably wants to understand how we can tackle such situations better.
Okay. In the end, one thing I've learned is nothing succeeds like success. Okay. So to do well, where your contributions are tangible and difficult to deny, all this, especially with these multinationals, all this sucking up and overplaying yourself, while it can irritate you, okay, if you focus your energy on that, then you are putting your energy there instead of on yourself, and then you're taking away, you're giving away your power. Correct? Is that the question? So they do this doesn't make them bad, and this is judgment. The moment you are judging them, you are wasting away your beautiful energy, and say that, oh, okay. There are times these things. This is also a lot of very deep work, by the way. I don't know if many of you may be ready to hear this or not, but very often what irritates about others is something that we are not able to do ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Very deeply embedded. So this exercise that I do on myself very often, the moment I find that I'm very irritated with somebody, you find the 3 things about that person that I put that exercise even in the book, by the way. Okay, there's a chapter on vision, and there is a chapter on how do you know what your vision is, and there is about 3 fundamental things which I talk about: letting go the past, accepting the present, and allowing the future. And in this exercise, I tell people to think of 3 things that annoy you about that person. Then think of the times when you behave in the same manner, or you want to behave but you are unable to behave because you think your environment or your situation or your family members or your colleagues will judge you harshly, and so you stop yourself, or you've learned in childhood that that's not the right way for a person to be. Invariably, if you give yourself the time and that openness, you will find that you also behave like that sometimes, and you don't like that part of it because there's a judgment within your voice which you were told when you were under the age of 7 that, hey, this is not a good thing or this is not a bad thing. So you have to learn that you should be open to question good and bad about everything. Everything can be good or bad, and nothing is good or bad. So that level of openness you need to start inculcating to give you a fresh perspective. That allows you to look at things differently. Otherwise, we will always go with that conditioning of the mind, and then we are living in the past. But if you want to create that new life in the future, then you have to start questioning that, how would that be, and what could I do differently, or how could I think differently, or what do I need to stop judging myself for or judging somebody else for to be more accepting. Things like that.
Yeah, I guess it's all about perspectives, as you told, Bhavna. Because something which might be like extremely right for me may not be so correct, or it might be appear wrong to somebody else. So there's a lot of gray area there. We cannot just define like black and white kind of. I guess
So
one.
there's question by Rajeshwari. Probably, is there a difference in how politics could affect your growth if you're a manager or if you're an individual contributor? Yeah, politics can affect your growth in a very positive way, and it can affect your growth in a very negative way, irrespective of whether you're a manager or an individual contributor. It's finally about your leadership abilities. So a leader is neither a manager nor an individual contributor. An individual contributor can be a leader, and so can a manager. And sometimes an individual contributor can be a bigger leader than the manager, right? So it can, again, it's how you address it, and it can accelerate your growth if you learn the right way of doing things. See, finally, everyone wants, if you're able to give people what they need, if you're able to give the key decision makers, the key stakeholders, the actual influencers what they need, you will move forward. But if you, so it's about trying to understand that. What are they looking for? What are the kind of skills or strengths or approaches or ideas are they looking for beyond the technical work that you do? Okay, you have to think in terms of behavioral ways, not just the task that you do. Most people get mired in their everyday tasks, and very naturally, right? You get caught up in it because you have things to do, you have to finish stuff. But it's in terms of your behaviors, what is it that they are looking for that you can offer to them?
One more question. Sometimes the politics will be based on the appearance, which leads to favoritism. So how can we tackle these politics? This is something prevalent in most of the IT companies.
So I'm noticing a victim mindset here, right? Because I'm a victim, poor me, I didn't get noticed. They are keep putting up a good appearance, so they are getting noticed. So you have choices. You make a choice. Either you say, "Hey, that's good. That's how can I position myself? The same work that I'm doing, how do I position it in such a way that people recognize that work because I'm so good at what I'm doing, right? Or, hey, I'm so bad at it that I don't want to work. I'm not a very good performer and I don't want to work, so I'll use this to feel better about myself." Correct? So there are many ways. So the fact of the matter, and I would highly recommend reading about this drama triangle and how from a victim you have to become a creator. You have to step up and say, okay, this person seems to be doing well. They are liked by others. Maybe I don't care so much about being liked, but I do care about doing well. So what is it that I need to do so that people can see how good I am? Maybe they haven't you seen people who succeed irrespective of being so lousy? They are rude, they don't talk to anybody nicely, but they are really good at what they are doing, and they are so desirable that people will still tolerate them. Correct? So some people use their their personality to do it. Some people will use their skills to do it. Some people will use their intelligence or genius to do it. Choose what you want and use that to showcase it and move forward. But the moment you say, oh, other people do this, you're judging them and you are in a way calling yourself a victim and you're calling them a persecutor. I know it's harsh and I know it's difficult to admit, but the moment I find myself complaining also very often, everyone faces these situations.
Mhm.
Sometimes you feel so powerless, isn't it? Isn't it about power at the end of the day? You feel powerless to change the situation. You cannot change anyone else. The only person you can think of changing is yourself. So why not do that? That is the only thing that will give you power. And that is the sure shot way of seeing a change in results.
So I mean, it's all about probably a slight change in our perspective also, rather than being considered like helpless, or considering ourselves as a victim. How can we turn the tables, and how can we do something to make a progressive difference, kind of.
Yeah, and that's where the self-awareness and emotions come into the picture, because and there's a chapter here on emotions fueling the engine. They are the most powerful thing we have. We can use it for our gain, or we can use it for our loss. But if you use it for your that's why they say follow your heart, because that's where your real true emotional desire resides, of what gives you joy.
Mhm.
So emotions are very powerful, and this chapter on emotions fuel the engine. There are a lot of other stories and examples in it as well, which tells you how to leverage your emotions and use them as that navigation and guidance system for yourself, irrespective of the rest of the world. But your true leadership, your true north, find that. Okay, good. I'm glad, Amolya, that helped and you took it in such a good spirit. But I know exactly the feeling, and it's so comforting and warm when you can feel like a victim, because then you feel poor me, and it is nice and it's lovely to vent. But somewhere you know that if this continues for long, there will not be too much change that will happen. And if you are somebody who wants to create a better and a better and a better life and future for yourself, then you have to at some point get out of it, and take charge and say, okay, where do I need to change? What do I need to do differently? What am I not doing right? That I keep seeing this pattern in my life over and over again. This keeps happening to me. So,
Okay, one more question. Srividya says you had mentioned that people at work are often a reflection of how they are at home. Does it mean that people may be political at home too, or it is more or less their personality?
for the longest time, I used to remember those TV shows that would come, that Saas Bahu, and I never really watched those, and I used to wonder what they, um, how cunning and manipulative some people are, and then you go into the workplace as well, and you see a lot of those similar traits as well happening, where some people genuinely will play more games. Uh, they will naturally in social circles where they want to be part of every groups, and they want to be invited by, that's become a big thing these days. They want to be invited by for all the get-togethers, even though they don't like each other and they're fake on the surface. But what is fake, really? Yeah, there are people you will not get along with, there are people you will get along with. So in terms of home, what I've noticed with the quite a few women leaders that I have worked with, very often there is, especially Indian society, where the male is given a little bit more of um, like a standing in society, because they are considered to be the traditional breadwinner. I want you to know something very powerful from yogic principles. Okay, 3 chakras in women are more powerful, and 3 chakras in men are more powerful, and the 7th chakra is equal for both. And the chakras that are more, that they rotate in one direction for women, and they rotate in a different direction for men, are the chakra of the 2nd, the 4th, and the 6th, which is those centers, energy centers of the 2nd one is off about sensuality, your beauty, your emotional intelligence, your creativity. The heart is the 4th one, where women give freely, they give from the heart, they love more, right? It comes from there, typically. And then the sixth is intuition, whether you can kind of sense. And for men, it is about the Mooladhara, which is the grounding. Then the power of will, the willpower, which is the provider. And then, the voice. Sometimes they ask for their needs more clearly than women do, right? Very often, traditionally.
Mm.
The masculine feminine energies that I talked about earlier, it's about the mixing of these two things. That you suppress your voice at home because you've grown up, like I said, that to be a better wife, you have to respect. But the respect is both ways. You also have to command that respect, that equality which exists. That distinction is so deeply patriarchally rooted in our society. And there is a lot happening, right, lately to break that. But those subtle things that happen, like I was in a panel talking about emotional intelligence, and one of the senior leaders actually said, oh, you need to build emotional intelligence because this is what separates the men from the boys. And so I had to step up and I had to interrupt his bias. What about the girls from the women from the girls, right? Why just men from the boys? So repeatedly, if you're using those old adage, so first of all, personality can be changed. Leadership is the ability to be able to change your personality. So not be so tied and married to your personality. Yes, there are certain things you will always gravitate towards, but the ability to shift that for the sake of the higher need is what leadership is all about. So does it mean people are more political at home? Sometimes if you're more suppressed at home, you might want to be more political at work. It can happen. You can never know because human behavior is so dependent on so many different factors that you have to go deeper. So if I go deeper, I will be able to tell that, oh, okay, this person is behaving this way because of these reasons, because in this area of their life. So I had a very senior, she was a director for a very good multinational and very brilliant, smart, outspoken, she could talk away in our sessions. And by the 8th session, it came out. Not even like usually my coaching is extremely transformational and things come out immediately. But in her case, what came up was that she was much smarter than her husband. She was much more brilliant and much higher achiever than her husband. But to keep the peace in the house, so-called, or not that even he would have minded, but her assumption was she had to underplay herself in front of him so that his ego is not hurt. And because of that, she was underplaying at work and not taking certain opportunities because that was just, that became a part of who she was. Make sense? Just want to check, how's everybody doing? Are you all finding value or do you want me to go in a certain direction? If you can do a quick pulse check here, Shobhita.
Yeah, so I guess so far, at least I've seen the responses that, doing great. So people have been happy and their questions are being answered is what I understand, Bhavna. So I'll quickly move on to one of the last questions that I have. So as such, when we compare men and women, especially in the leadership cadre, so the women leaders are supposed to be like, we have more circumstances which make us struggle more when it comes to women. So in such cases, what do you think, there are some, tips or tricks or some steps that women can take, to claim the power or to empower themselves, as you were talking already?
What do you mean by struggle?
Sorry?
What do you mean by struggle?
Struggle, as in I would say, it is more of like, a lot of adverse circumstances, probably as a woman, how you're perceived by others. So as such, I've seen in general, there is like, okay, some people have their ego is hurt, or say they have a problem reporting to a lady boss, kind of. There might be things like that, or it might also be like with some of the, so it might be like downwards or from your peers also sometimes, and can be sometimes from your boss as well, because if you're competitive than your male peer, even then probably sometimes you tend to kind of sideline you or don't give you all those niche assignments, kind of.
So, of course, you will work with all kinds of people who have all kinds of backgrounds, and even though they know that the good thing is a lot of these more multinationals, and they're bringing in so much education around what is okay, what is not okay, you know, in terms of work. But like I said earlier, that patriarchy is so deeply rooted that, of course, very often we come across it and people don't even think they're doing anything wrong. Like in the case of this gentleman that I told you, where he said he quoted men only, forgetting about a whole. That's why we have, like, you know, the LGBTQI, because there's each section of society which has not been represented equally. There is the typical masculine that has gotten more and more, you know, they've been put on a pedestal, or they've gotten more opportunities in the past, right? You have to, if you're dwelling on that, then it is difficult and you will always feel like there is struggle. So while it's important to be cognitive of what certain things can happen, the first time someone tries to sideline you, you need to set them straight. So you need to find that power and that strength to speak up, right? How you do it is up to you, but you need to be able to point it out, because otherwise it will get repeated.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you find a good way of doing it so that you don't feel uncomfortable? Because it can be uncomfortable, right? How do you say this to people, or how do you say that to people? It's always something within us which is kind of not okay or not aligned, which is why very often these situations even happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
So slowly but surely you can build. Very often, you know, time works in a spiral. So the same lessons come back to us, and the energy of that lesson may diminish over time. But very often you have to learn that lesson from different facets, actually, from different aspects of it. So it could be first your relationship with your parent, it could be your relationship with your child, which shows you these things, it could be the relationship with your boss then. And if it happens to you over and over and over again, if you don't address it, you are really taking in a lot of negativity. You're going to feel really, really horrible, and all that is going to diminish your power even more and more. So finding a way to kind of challenge that is important. So yes, there may be struggle, but then the focus has to always be on the positive. You should be aware of the negative, but keep your energy. So the frequency, and so by the way, somebody talked about conflict. Just Google Bhavna Dalal conflict and you will find articles I've written on every topic. In fact, 100, 200 articles, mostly in Forbes India and Fortune India. Some have been translated in other languages. So you can find a lot of articles on almost every topic, you know, even victim mindset, there's an article on that. Conflict, there's an article. So there is another article called the frequency of the problem is different from the frequency of the solution. So if you stay mired in the problem frequency, it's difficult to get to that thought frequency of the solution. Mm-hmm. So the way to get to the thought frequency of the solution is to elevate your emotion to a positive state of mind, which helps you find the solution. And that also moves you away from the victim mindset. So that problem is the victim mindset, is the negative emotion. You need to get that, you go for a walk, go for a run, talk to a friend, take a shower, and make that decision to get out of that state of mind into a more optimistic state of mind, and then the solution will come to you.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not about the struggle, it's about finding the solution. So there's a different way of looking at it, right? It's okay, yeah, there is a struggle, but I don't want to dwell there. What can I do? What do I need to do differently? It's about, if you have to shift your thinking to that.
Okay. Yeah, that's like a focus on, you know, on that solution mindset basically, and, you know, have a shift in perspective.
Exactly. Thank you.
Bhavna, just one add-on question to this. I was just wondering, so sometimes it's not just about the other male colleagues or the competition within the male or that bias, right? We as women also have some inherent or unconscious bias against other women. So, yeah, so does that also play a role here, in making things more difficult for women?
Of course, but you know, one thing I've noticed, Shobita, the newer generation in the last 5 years, I think a lot of women are helping other women. Mm-hmm. Earlier, there would be a lot more of this negativity, and there's still a lot of it, obviously, in the junior, you know, there's a lot of backbiting, gossiping, and, this going on with that person. Most certainly, definitely there is. And there will be always people trying to pull you down. There will be other women wanting to pull you down because they want what you have. Inherently, somewhere deep down, they don't have what you have. That exercise that I told you, right? So instead of dealing with their own demons, we always project it on other people. That's very natural human behavior. We all do that, right? I myself still find myself doing that sometimes, which I have to kind of correct myself and say, hey, okay, since I'm feeling this way about somebody else, what's going on with me? And then I understand a need that is not being met. I want to be able to also feel this way, but I am not able to, this is not happening to me. And so instead of like clearly communicating that need to whoever I need to communicate it to, I'm just like being, I'm keeping it in and I'm not recognizing that this is a need. So you have to start becoming more aware of what your needs are and then, expressing those needs to people who are in the position to fulfill them, So it really doesn't matter if it's other women pulling you down or other men. You are being pulled down and you need to do something on your end that you don't let it happen to you again because it's not nice and you'd much rather do other things.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Bhavna. So we have one more question from Madhuri in the chat. She says, I read a research paper which says that women tend to adopt masculine personalities as a way to succeed. This comes unknowingly.
Absolutely. In fact, I was working with a client where...
Yeah, probably. So is there anything that you would suggest to, avoid that?
So a lot of our conditioning, we start adopting other people's mannerisms, behaviors, habits, quite subconsciously, right? So I talk about that in my book. In fact, this is the first time I'm talking about that aspect of the book, which I'd forgotten I had written. But you have to be very conscious of who you surround yourself with. There's no harm in adopting certain masculine qualities if you don't have them, right? But if you are thinking of, like I said, better decision making, analytical thinking, being more assertive, but if that becomes aggressive, then that's not okay because it will hurt you. So we are always adopting things from each other. As human beings, we coexist. We do need connection. We need to belong. We need to be with each other, and there's a constant flow of energy in and out. There's always things we're learning from people and giving back to people. Again, self-awareness. The more aware you become, the more conscious you become of what you're taking, what is not serving you well, what is serving you well. Do more of that. Like, in the beginning, you may not like certain things. Like I'll give you my own example. I was always a very responsible person growing up, and I was always very, righteous, always doing the right thing. And then I moved into a place where these people were not even as high achievers or whatever, but everybody still liked them, but they like to have a lot of fun. And so I always undermined fun, but then from them I learned the importance of fun. I learned that through fun, your creativity gets enhanced. Fun makes you feel like a child. Fun makes you feel good. Fun is a perfect balance for the high achievement. Only high achieving is not really as productive as when you combine it with these fun, lighter moments. And so owning up more to that fun became something that I started adopting. I didn't know how to do it. I started consciously learning and picking up, even though I was uncomfortable about it in the beginning. Just dancing freely or whatever I would be so awkward, but then you start imbibing. So just awareness, observation, curiosity about yourself, about your surroundings, which we in our daily lives these days don't find the time to do, but there's a lot of value to that.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Bhavna. So we have a couple of more questions from the registrations. Audience, please, if you have more questions, please keep them coming in the chat. We'll take them. And
missed out on some. I know we may have missed out on a few as we went along. So just let us know if we've missed you.
Yeah, if you've missed, you can repost it so that we can take it also. So meanwhile, a couple of questions from the registrations, Bhavna. So one question is how to make sure that the credit of our work is not is noticed and not hijacked by others.
Okay, so I would like somebody from the audience to answer this based on the talk that we have.
Anybody, you can please, raise your hand or so. I mean, you can put it in the chat. I can unmute you and you can talk.
Okay, maybe Shobita, you want to answer?
Yeah, so I guess basically the best way is, as long as we have created a trust with I mean, obviously the credits is made mostly with your boss and the higher management. So as long as we are projecting ourselves in the right way and we have already established a trust with the higher management and our boss, so I don't think anybody else can take it away. And to have frequent or often, discussions or conversations or communication, be that through email or other, other channels. We have a lot of channels of communication these days. So any other channel which is like the most easier and wherever the management notices, as long as that is getting done, I don't think anybody can take away that credit. So at least something that I myself have followed is like, I always, if I'm trying to work on some idea, so I give a heads up to my boss. I'm starting with something, and I keep him posted on the updates and at the closure as well. So that really helps us what I've seen. So
Yeah.
yeah, Bhavna.
Okay, Madhuri got it. Yes. So also I want you to, notice a very important thing. How do you feel when that happens to you? Right? It's not nice. It's not fair. Your values of a lot of your values are going to get compromised, and you are going to be upset. It's not going to be a nice thing. And life is a beautiful thing. You have every right to tap your potential and live the best life and be the best of who you want to be. And if something like that is happening, it's not nice. So you need to recognize that you're not doing yourself a favor if you don't take action against it.
Yeah.
It becomes, and maybe that can give you that power and that strength to give yourself that respect that you deserve to not be sidelined. You deserve more, and use that to empower yourself and become that goddess, and say that, hey, I'm not going to put up with this.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Bhavna. I guess we have one more question, which most of the other questions you've already responded to in various forms, Bhavna. We have just one more.
Yeah,
That is
actually, whatever points are coming in are very valid, and that is those are the many solutions that can come from once you determine that I'm not going to take this. You've seen so many movies also that at one point everybody will just refuse to put up with no matter what injustice is being done to them. And what is that, right? When you truly say that, no, I'm not going to put up with that. And women need to bring that out more and more, but if they do that work on them quietly, then it will not come out as, she's bossy and she's misbehaving. And sometimes that's okay too. But we don't have to go to that extreme. Start doing that work and let that little voice from inside become louder, which tells you that, no, I'm not going to tolerate this. So yeah, sorry, go ahead with the...
no problem. So yeah, one last question that we had is like, how do we negotiate with leadership to get what we need? That's the last.
That's a very good question, and I also work on negotiation skills with people. What is negotiation after all, right? You give a little, you somebody else gets a little. So it's a constant give and take. So it's not a one-time thing, but it's about, if they are not able to see what you have to offer, then you do what it takes to show them that, right? It might sometimes mean threatening them that you might leave. It might mean, so the negotiation comes from that empathy of knowing what leadership cares about. Who are the key decision makers there? Who do you need to spend more time on convincing or influencing? What matters to those people? And earlier people would do it in these sales meetings with dinners and wining and dining, but that's exactly what happens on golf courses. That you kind of find yourself in that same room, and find those opportunities. I've written it, I think, in the book, where that is related to bullying. When somebody was bullying you and you felt powerless in an organization, This person went and joined some other, you have all these different committees which are not related to work, but like you have a party planning committee or some kind of, people are interested. You start joining those things and you build your network of some senior people who come for those particular, you have the same school your kids go to, build that rapport there, so you have to build those networks strategically, and there's nothing wrong with that. We may judge it, men do it all the time, so what's the harm? Sometimes if women have to kind of leverage who they are as women, they're softer, you compliment people. Everybody looks down upon things that people are using as their strengths. At the end of it, you have to remember, almost everyone is using whatever their strength is to showcase themselves, right? So you, instead of kind of putting them down for doing that, find your strength and showcase that. Find your strength that you're comfortable with demonstrating and showcase that.
Okay, yeah, makes sense, Bhavna. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So I don't see much more questions in the chat. So everybody, I've just shared the survey link for email. So we are trying to figure out, what are the other topics that you would like sessions on. So please do take the survey and let us know. And meanwhile, Bhavna, I guess we had an awesome conversation. I mean, you gave a lot of insights to everybody here and almost answered all the questions. And people started to that extent that people started, answering their own questions. So I mean, that brings, that really, shows the level of awareness that you have brought in with the audience. So, thanks a lot for the session, Bhavna. And we will definitely, I'll definitely try to get a copy of your book and read it.
It meant a lot to me when you said that people are answering their own questions. But as a coach, that's what we try to get people to do. We never give them the solution. We help them think of what works. So I'm grateful for you to say that. And I'll put a link of the book. Please, if you do get it and read it, send me a note to let me know how you liked it. And I would really appreciate that so much. But thank you so much, Shobita. And you guys have been an amazing audience and so engaged, and it's been such a pleasure for me to be here.
Yeah, thanks once again, Bhavna. So you combined two things today, I would say. One, not just the politics and the dynamics, you kind of inculcated some of the coaching concepts also to it, so that, people have started finding their own solutions. So that is really wonderful. I mean, really, really, we had a very nice evening and a very nice conversation. Thank you once again. And thanks, audience. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Hope you all had a good session. So don't forget to take our survey. So we'll have a much more richer calendar coming up from Lean in Witty for all of you. Thanks.
Round of applause for Shobita for her first time. You were incredible. So,
thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
bye. Good luck, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, goodbye. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.